The video cuts to a still shot of a desk covered in various papers. Legal logs, arrest files, and government seals are visible. One specific sheet stands out, a formal statement from December 11th, 2025. Every word is typed out and saved. Right beside it is a conduct record from the El Paso cops regarding Chris Nano. It lists the punishments. It shows the days. The lens focuses on both files together. One claims yes, one claims no. They cannot both be right. Facts do not shift just because you say they are false. Reality does not vanish just because it is annoying. What happened is written in the logs, and those logs tell a very clear tale. Nancy Guthrie needs a probe handled by a man of integrity. Her kin need information from a person they can actually believe. We all deserve police chiefs who do not dispute the paper trail when they are on the stand. If honesty is important to you, if you think evidence beats a simple no, if you feel Nancy Guthrie needs her day in court, follow Crime Uncovered. Like this, if you want the board to step up on March 24th and tell us if the sheriff should quit, how does this affect the hunt for Nancy? We do more than just report stories. We fight for the truth. We check the talk against the actual files. We will keep searching for the real story. Contact the feds at 1-800-CALL-FBI. There is a $2 million reward for tips to bring her home. If you have a lead, share it. Her people are waiting. December 11th, 2025. Inside a cramped, sterile meeting room, a court reporter waits. Right hand up, the solemn vow begins. Sheriff Chris Nanos pledges absolute honesty under legal threat. This happened 7 weeks before Nancy Guthrie's mysterious disappearance. Just 7 weeks later, he'd be the primary spokesperson for a missing person investigation captivating the entire nation. In 7 weeks, a massive audience of millions would be dissecting every single sentence he uttered. The lawyer poses a basic query requiring a binary response. Throughout your time in uniform, were you ever handed a suspension? The official record captures the sheriff's firm denial. He claimed a spotless record spanning more than 40 years. However, internal files from the El Paso Police Department tell a different story, revealing 8 separate disciplinary suspensions, 37 days of lost wages, and a mandatory exit to dodge a firing. Memories might fade, but paperwork is permanent. Can someone truly forget 8 workplace suspensions? Is being told to quit or get fired forgettable, or is lying under oath just easier? The family of the vanished woman deserves the truth. Chris Nanos originally hailed from the city of El Paso, Texas. He pursued a degree in criminal justice, eyeing a legal career, yet his journey took an unexpected turn. By February 1976, at only 20, he was El Paso's youngest recruit. Initially, he showed great promise in the field. Nanos operated in deep cover as a lure, risking his safety to trap violent muggers and narcotics traffickers. He took home gold for the department's boxing squad. Press reports highlighted his dangerous work. Then came 1980's major accolade. He earned Western Region Officer of the Year honors for rescuing his partner. It was a career-making achievement for any cop. It suggested a bright path ahead. Yet, 6 years into his tenure, that promising trajectory came to a sudden halt. August 1982 arrived with a harsh ultimatum. He could either quit immediately or face termination. He chose resignation. His formal personnel file listed the causes for his departure: disobeying orders and a pattern of poor performance. From 1976 through 1982, based on documentation uncovered by the Arizona Republic newspaper, Nanos faced 37 unpaid days across 8 distinct suspensions. He dealt with 26 accusations over 5 years, including brutality, illegal betting while off the clock, chronic lateness, skipping shifts, intimidation tactics, and neglecting his primary responsibilities. These weren't small mistakes, they were grave breaches. These incidents pile up and eventually destroy a professional reputation. Following his El Paso exit, Nanos moved to Arizona, joining the Pima County Sheriff's Department in 1984. Throughout 40 years of service, he climbed the departmental ladder, eventually reaching the rank of chief deputy, leading investigations and holding various command posts before his election as sheriff. His 2024 victory was by only 495 votes. Then, on February 1st, 2026, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished from her Tucson residence without a trace. Sheriff Chris Nanos led the search efforts and became the face of the investigation. He fronted media briefings and national TV spots, addressing the family and a public desperate for answers. Yet 7 weeks prior to that disappearance, this same official gave sworn testimony regarding his past. Evidence from official archives suggests that his response was a complete fabrication. If you value evidence over excuses and believe investigators must be honest under oath, please consider subscribing to this channel. Here at Crime Uncovered, we look beyond the prepared statements given by law enforcement during their media event. We analyze transcripts and verify claims against hard data. We pose the difficult questions others avoid. Every piece of paper is crucial. Each discrepancy requires a closer look. Let's dive back into that December 11th, 2025 meeting room. Sheriff Nanos was undergoing questioning related to a specific federal legal action. Sergeant Aaron Cross, who leads the Pima County Deputies Union, initiated the suit. He has famously sparred with Nanos for quite some time. Just 3 weeks before the 2024 election, the sheriff sidelined Cross by placing him on paid leave. The justification was that Cross campaigned for a political rival while purportedly dressed in his official law enforcement gear. Cross rejected this claim. Judicial filings indicate he was actually in everyday attire, not his police uniform at the time. He filed a lawsuit alleging he was punished for exercising his free speech. That legal battle is currently ongoing. While gathering evidence, the attorney for Cross cross-examined Sheriff Nanos under oath. These proceedings carry immense legal weight. Dishonesty during a deposition constitutes perjury, a serious federal offense that can lead to 5 years behind bars. The counsel inquired about any past reprimands in Nanos' professional record. The inquiry was specific. Have you ever been disciplined with a suspension throughout your entire time as a cop? Sheriff Nanos replied with a simple no. He claimed total ignorance of any discipline over 4 decades. His words were recorded, submitted to the court, and remained unnoticed until March 2026, when investigative journalists unearthed his old El Paso file. Those forgotten documents painted a vastly different picture. Journalists at the Arizona Republic secured Sheriff Nanos' formal conduct files directly from El Paso's police headquarters. We aren't talking hearsay or whispers. These are verified agency logs, the paper trail used to track every time a cop breaks the rules. The numbers are staggering. 8 suspensions, 37 unpaid days within 6 years, and 26 separate marks against his professional record. Let's look at the specifics. In March 1982, Nanos caught a 15-day unpaid suspension for allegedly roughing up a robbery suspect. The victim, Carlos Urias, reported being kicked and struck in the head. Urias had to go to the hospital. A grand jury even looked into the incident. 15 days docked, that is over 2 weeks of missed income or half a month's rent. Even without a criminal charge, the department still chose to punish him. That move proves his behavior crossed the line of professional standards, even if it was not a felony. You do not just forget something like that. Having a grand jury investigate you for allegedly hospitalizing a citizen is a massive career red flag. But that was just the beginning of his troubles. His file is littered with various claims of using way too much physical force throughout his career. It happened repeatedly, not just once. Every single event was probed and ended in actual disciplinary action. Think about what unnecessary force really implies in this line of work. It means using far more violence than what is actually needed to do the job. It is the exact moment when maintaining control turns into a flat-out assault. It means your own bosses decided you went way too far. A single claim might just be a one-time fluke, maybe a bad call in a high-pressure situation, a split-second mistake made while under fire, but multiple flags suggest a habit, a chronic issue that no amount of training or oversight could actually fix. When these marks stack up over the years on your internal file, they paint a clear picture of how you treat the public. Then there is the personal misconduct. He was caught gambling while off the clock, which violated department rules. This was not some minor slip-up. He was also a habitual clock puncher. The records prove he was not just running 5 minutes behind on a single morning. It was a constant issue. Official reprimands and write-ups show a guy who bosses simply could not trust to be present when things got real. He would just ghost his shifts, failing to show up or even call in. He was just gone when he was supposed to be working. That is straight up abandoning your post. It leaves your fellow officers in the lurch and absolutely destroys professional trust. He also received a formal reprimand for making threats. Who was the target? What exactly did he say? The logs do not give the dirty details, but leadership felt it was dangerous enough to put in writing permanently, neglecting his basic duties, failing to handle his core responsibilities, and even misusing department property. He got caught using his patrol siren against orders and wasting resources, leading to another black mark on his permanent record. These were more than just warnings. Each entry represents a full investigation with statements and evidence totaling 37 unpaid days in 6 years. Let us put that into perspective. 6 years of full-time work adds up to roughly 1,565 shifts, counting weekends and holidays. Nanos spent 37 of those days on the bench without a paycheck. That means nearly 2.4% of his career was spent on disciplinary suspension. On average, he was getting docked for a violation every 42 days he was on the job. This is not the record of a guy who just had one bad afternoon. This is not some isolated oops moment. This is a verified pattern of behavior caught by numerous supervisors across an entire police agency over many years. By August 1982, things finally hit the fan. Nanos was given a choice: quit immediately or get fired. He walked away. The official reason for his exit? Total insubordination and a consistent lack of efficiency on the job. Resigning to avoid being fired means only one thing. The department decided you are no longer fit to wear the badge. You are not being asked to stay. You are just being told how you are leaving. In law enforcement, being pushed out is a total career killer. It means your bosses viewed you as a liability. It means your presence could no longer be tolerated for even one more day. Defying legal orders, disrespecting the bosses, and challenging the people in charge. Breaking the chain of command that keeps a department running while showing a total failure to handle basic tasks correctly. Not a one-time slip, but a documented, long-term failure to perform at an acceptable level. All of this is pulled directly from El Paso police files, obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, verified by the Republic, and dropped in March 2026. 8 suspensions, 37 unpaid days, and a forced resignation. Yet, in December 2025, under oath, Nanos claimed he had 0. When asked for a comment, he just sent a dismissive email about their request. Why not dig into my high school detention slips while you are at it? Have fun with your little smear campaign. His testimony in that deposition was not the only thing that failed to match the actual paper trail. The resume he posted on the Pima County Sheriff's website claimed he worked in El Paso until 1984. El Paso police files confirm he quit in August 1982. That leaves a 2-year void. Those missing years masked what looked like a clean jump between jobs, hiding a gap that stayed dark. Once the Arizona Republic broke the story, the Pima County Sheriff's Office sneakily edited his CV. They swapped 1984 for 1982, claiming a typo, just a simple paperwork mistake. No harm intended. Yet, the timing is key. They fixed that resume on March 10th, 2026. But the legal testimony took place on December 11th, 2025. So, when Sheriff Nanos spoke under oath regarding his past conduct, his online credentials still claimed he worked in El Paso for 2 extra years beyond his actual departure. Typos on a job application are minor. Lying while testifying in a federal courtroom is a crime. Perjury involves providing false info while sworn to tell the truth about critical matters. 3 factors apply. First, the oath. Sheriff Nanos gave his word before the deposition. Second, the claim is untrue. If El Paso's logs of 8 separate suspensions are legit, then denying any disciplinary history is a lie. Third, you knew it was false. Proving intent is the tricky part. Can a person truly blank out on suspensions from 40 years ago? Think about what he forgot. Getting kicked off the job without pay 8 different times, losing over a month's income, facing a grand jury probe for supposedly kicking someone's skull, being given the choice quit or get fired. These aren't just forgettable workdays. If you were ever suspended and lost your paycheck, would you really just forget? If you were forced out of a position, would that memory vanish? Most folks remember getting in serious trouble. Losing pay is a major financial blow. Being pushed to resign is life-altering, yet no charges have been filed. The clash in stories wasn't found until months later, but the proof remains written in plain black and white. Sworn words against official paperwork. Here is the fallout. This gives every defense lawyer a new weapon in court. If you're facing charges in Puma County and Sheriff Nanos handled your file, your lawyer can show a jury that the sheriff gave testimony that completely contradicts documented government records. You don't need to prove he lied to you. You just need to make jurors doubt his word under oath. This explains why Supervisor Matt Hines told Newsweek that the county might revisit every single case Nanos touched during his 40-year tenure. This isn't just talk, it's a legal nightmare. Once a cop's honesty is trashed, every case they worked is at risk. Nancy Guthrie was 84. She attended church every Sunday, shared Saturday dinners with family, stayed alone in her Catalina Foothills house, cherished her kids, and loved her grandkids. On January 31st, 2026, she was taken away. They found blood on her porch. Her security camera was cut. Her heart monitor quit syncing with her mobile at 2:28 a.m. By dawn on February 1st, Nancy had vanished. Her relatives dialed 911. Puma County deputies rushed over. Murder investigators and the FBI joined in. Nancy earned a top-tier emergency response and a flawless investigation. Every tool should have been used with total speed and care. She deserved a heat-seeking plane in the sky within minutes, scanning the desert with gear made to find the lost. Instead, that plane sat on the tarmac for about 3 hours because the expert pilot was walking a beat after fighting with Nanos. 3 hours wasted while every second counted. Let's look at the cost of that 3-hour delay. Survey 1. The $7.5 million Cessna 208 Caravan Puma County bought in 2020 has specialized high-def heat sensors for desert searches. At night, as the air cools, a human body glows on those screens like a light bulb. You see it from miles above. You can search massive stretches of land in no time. In those first 3 hours, that plane could have checked hundreds of miles. It could have spotted anyone moving out there. It could have trailed cars on dirt paths. It could have found Nancy if she was nearby. But the one pilot trained for that specific gear wasn't there. He'd been demoted to patrol duty following a personal spat with Sheriff Nanos. The pilot begged the sheriff to reconsider. Per the Puma County Deputies Organization, Nanos moved him anyway. Regardless, when an 84-year-old with heart issues went missing from a bloody home, that choice mattered. By the time Survey 1 finally took off, Nancy's captor had a 3-hour head start to reach Interstate 10 and vanish into the night. 3 hours to hide any tracks, 3 hours to get so far that thermal cameras couldn't help her. A police contact told Fox News that 3 hours is a lifetime when searching for a high-risk adult. Nancy deserved more than a grounded plane over a petty grudge. She deserved a scene handled with extreme professional care. Every bit of proof was handled right, nothing got dirty, and nothing was let go until the cops were certain they had it all. But Sheriff Nanos spilled the beans in early February. They ditched that scene way too early. What does that actually look like on the ground? Once they pull that yellow tape, the party is over. The house is no longer under the thumb of the local police. Relatives walk in, gear gets shoved around, scrubbed, or messed up. Anything they missed the first time is basically trash or gone forever. Nanos actually owned up to the fact that his team had to crawl back days later for stuff they should have grabbed initially. This was days afterward, with people trampling through the place since they had already opened the doors back up. Long before the area was locked tight or the processing was done, the whole security perimeter was basically a joke. Reporters got close enough to snapshots of blood stains. Those pictures hit the news while the hunt was still in full swing. You cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. You cannot fix a crime scene once you have let it rot. Contamination is forever. Nancy deserved a solid investigation, not a rush job that required a messy do-over days later. That vital proof should have been on a plane to the FBI headquarters in Quantico, Virginia, the very same day. That is where the heavy hitters use top-tier tech and DNA tracing to get answers at lightning speed. The feds officially asked for the big stuff, like that glove near the house and the scene samples for their Quantico lab. Sheriff Nanos brushed them off. He handed it to some private shop down in Florida instead. By February 13th, a federal source told Reuters This move blocked the FBI and just slowed down a dying clock. Arum, that big forensic DNA outfit based out of Texas, was not staying quiet about this choice either. These are the same folks who cracked the Brian Koberger case regarding those students murdered in Idaho. Kristen Middleman, their co-founder, went on the record calling the whole situation absolutely tragic. She pointed out that Quantico handles this data faster and more accurately than any other facility out there. They have got a straight shot to advanced genetic mapping that can spot a killer using their family tree. That Florida spot, she warned, uses gear that eats the evidence. Once it is tested, there is nothing left to check. Nanos claimed he had been tight with Florida for years and wanted one shop for everything. But Nancy's family needs the real truth. When the FBI, the best forensic team on the planet, asks to step in and help out, when they want to analyze proof that could literally save your mother's life if they work fast enough, why pull a no? What excuse works for picking a contractor over the FBI when an 84-year-old is missing? Nancy was entitled to the most sophisticated forensic deep dive currently available to law enforcement. Instead, she got a choice that federal insiders claim might have crippled the whole search. Nancy deserved a leader who would tell the stone-cold truth while under oath in a courtroom, not someone fixing his resume after journalists caught the lies or calling fair questions hit pieces to dodge heat. She needed a sheriff with rock-solid integrity, whose word carried weight and matched the actual paper trail. Yet she was stuck with a man who told a judge in December 2025 he had never been suspended, even though El Paso city files show he was benched 8 different times over a 6-year stretch. Nancy Guthrie was owed skill, honesty, and a sense of urgency, the very best the badge can offer. 47 days have passed, and she is still gone. Savannah had to go on national TV just to beg for help. She stepped away from her Today Show gig, waiting while the case tripped over its own feet. The family put up $1 million. Adding the FBI's $100,000, there is over $1 million bounty, but still 0 leads since the probe slugged through blunders. Now we find out the guy in charge seemingly lied under oath about being fired and having a long history of trouble. Nancy Guthrie was worth so much more than this mess. Her kin deserves better. The facts deserve better. Let us look at those first few hours after she vanished. Every call made or missed had a price. Every second wasted made it harder to bring her home. February 1st, noon, the family realizes she is gone. She never missed her online Sunday service. She was always the first one logged in. When her screen stayed dark, they panicked. They rang her cell, but it just kept ringing into silence. They raced to her place in the Catalina Hills. Her car was sitting right there in the shut garage. From the street, it looked like a quiet afternoon. But then they stepped onto the porch and saw the blood. Nancy had vanished. Her phone was just sitting on a table. No clues, no tracks, nothing. They dialed 911. Pima County deputies pull up to find a grisly scene. The evidence suggests foul play right away. They kick it up a notch instantly. Bringing in murder investigators for a disappearance is a major red flag. Usually, a whole different team deals with folks who have gone missing. But given the blood and an 84-year-old with heart issues gone, they treated it like a hit from the jump. This is when you would expect a perfectly tuned response. The force has high-tech gear built for these exact stakes. Take Survey 1, that heat-seeking bird bought for desert rescues where every single second counts. The playbook says, scramble that plane now, comb the brush and tail any suspicious wheels on the road, scan for body heat, and lock onto the trail before it goes cold. Yet, the hangar stayed shut. Why? Insiders told the press the only guy cleared for that cockpit was walking a beat because of a beef with the boss. No repairs, no clouds, just bad blood. A petty office grudge from months back suddenly became a wall standing between Nancy Guthrie and her rescue. The local police union confirmed the pilot actually begged the sheriff to let him keep his wings. He lived for that flight unit and knew that bird inside and out. The man was sharp and ready, but Nanos benched him anyway. Then the call came about a missing grandmother. That multi-million-dollar asset sat idle not because of a storm, but because the pilot was stuck in a patrol car. How long do you lose finding a backup pilot when the clock is ticking? You have to hunt down someone with the right spec, yank them from their post, haul them to the tarmac, and run through the pre-flight checklist. Clear the towers while a frail woman with a bad heart is potentially being hauled miles away. Reports claim Survey 1 didn't actually lift off until 3 hours later. Just think about how much ground could be covered in that time frame. 3 hours north puts you in the middle of Phoenix. 3 hours south, and you are deep inside the Mexican state of Sonora. 3 hours east hits New Mexico, while going west puts you at the California line. Within 3 hours, someone could drive nearly 200 miles. That is a search radius effectively the size of the entire state of Connecticut. That delay was the difference between spotting a suspect nearby and chasing shadows across state lines. A source close to the case put it bluntly, 3 hours for a vulnerable senior is basically forever. Back at the house, the techs are combing through the mess. Blood on the steps, a dead camera, and signs of a struggle. Her cell was still sitting there. The woman's pacemaker cut its link to her phone at exactly 2:28 in the morning per the official timeline. This was a crime scene that needed to be locked down tight and processed by the book. You do not move a pebble until it is tagged and bagged. Every fingerprint and smudge matters. Every scrap of DNA and every inch of that yard could hold the key to what happened. Forensic work is slow and steady. You cannot cut corners, and you definitely do not walk away early. The sheriff later fessed up to the local paper that they dumped the scene too fast. They had to go back later to fix it. During a presser in early February, Nanos admitted that looking back, they dropped the ball. He acknowledged they should have held the perimeter and called for backup much sooner, but by then, the damage was already done. Reporters had already swarmed the area, and photos of the blood were already on the evening news. The integrity of the site was shot. Then there was the actual physical evidence. They found a glove 2 miles out and some DNA that could have nailed the guy who grabbed her. The Bureau asked to fly that evidence straight to their top-tier lab in Virginia. Quantico is in a league of its own. They have the fastest tech and the best geneticists on the planet. They can tap into family trees to unmask a killer using just a drop of blood. That is exactly how they finally caught the Golden State Killer after decades of silence. It is the same tech that tracked down the Idaho killer and solved cases from 40 years ago. When the feds ask for evidence in a kidnapping, you say yes, because speed saves lives. Getting a name in hours instead of weeks could have brought Nancy home alive. Sheriff Nanos shut them down on February 13th. A federal official accused Nanos of stiff-arming the Bureau's request for evidence, choosing instead to ship it off to a private facility down in Florida. This federal source informed Reuters that the delay is jeopardizing a situation that becomes more critical with every passing second. That same insider pointed out previous investigative blunders and slammed the sheriff for failing to request federal help earlier. We are not talking about some nameless tipsters here. These were official, on-the-record accounts given by federal agents to Reuters, Fox News, and News Nation all at once. 3 major media outlets are unified in reporting that the sheriff was actively keeping the FBI away from crucial evidence. Sheriff Nanos stood by his actions in the public eye. He told several news stations that his office had a long history with the Florida laboratory and preferred keeping things centralized to prevent errors. Still, the logic is baffling when you are managing the most famous missing person investigation in the entire nation. With an 84-year-old woman's survival on the line, why would you snub the world's top forensics lab for a private firm? Reports indicate the Pima County Sheriff's Office shelled out over $200,000 for Florida's services in this specific case. While Nanos claimed the DNA work was a freebie, insiders pointed to that $200,000 price tag for total processing. On the other hand, utilizing the FBI's Quantico facility would have been completely free, as they provide these resources to local cops at no cost. Assisting with high-stakes investigations is exactly what they are designed to do. Essentially, the choice was between a world-class federal lab for $0 featuring the quickest results and top-tier ancestry tracing tools versus a private Florida contractor whose testing methods can actually destroy the evidence for good. Yet, Nanos picked Florida. That marks 3 major failures during those first pivotal days of the search. They kept the heat-sensing plane on the ground for 3 hours and cleared the crime scene far too quickly. Every decision to bypass FBI experts and use a private lab came directly from Sheriff Nanos or his top advisors. Former federal agents have blasted these moves as massive mistakes. Furthermore, 7 weeks before Nancy Guthrie went missing, This sheriff gave a sworn statement that seems to flatly contradict records showing 8 separate suspensions and a forced exit from a previous job. On March 12, 2026, a formal push to remove Sheriff Chris Nanos from office was officially launched. Congressional hopeful Daniel Boutier is heading the campaign, citing the botched Guthrie case and the questionable deposition as primary reasons. To trigger a vote under Arizona law, organizers must gather signatures from 25% of those who voted in the last election. That equals about 120,000 verified names in 4 months. By late March, 500 volunteers had already joined. Nanos reacted by saying, "The recall is happening, and the citizens have every right to pursue it." He called it a part of the democratic process, but remained silent about his deposition and the conflicting El Paso employment records. A department spokesperson informed Newsweek that legal counsel has instructed the sheriff not to make any further statements. The Puma County Board of Supervisors has arranged a specific meeting for March 24th to address the situation. They plan to review Nanos' professional background and what Supervisor Matt Hines labeled as potentially dishonest testimony given last December. Hines told reporters that such behavior would get any county worker fired, but it is especially egregious for a law enforcement leader. There is a real fear that every single case he has touched throughout his career at Puma County might have to be reopened. This all stems from the legal action brought by Sergeant Aaron Cross. Cross publicly stated that the community needs to know their top cop is being dishonest while testifying under oath. This recall effort has support from both sides of the aisle, as the integrity of the office is more important than partisan politics. The core issue is whether the sheriff lied under oath and if a man without credibility should lead criminal investigation. Back in 2024, the deputies of Puma County held a formal vote of no confidence against their leader. It was not even a close competition. A staggering 98% of the staff voted against Sheriff Nanos' management. Lieutenant Bob Kreider, a retired commander, went on the record to confirm that overwhelming percentage. Union leader Sergeant Aaron Cross noted that morale is bottoming out, with staff numbers dropping from over 1,600 to just 1,100. A massive exodus of employees followed Nanos' last victory. These are not just political rivals. These are the actual officers who report to him every shift and handle the day-to-day police work. They see the inner workings of the department, and when 98% say they do not trust the boss, you have a disaster. Just consider the weight of a 98% no confidence tally in the real world. In typical workplaces, you might see a small group of 30% who are unhappy with certain new rules. Maybe 40% might dislike the way things are going, but 98% is essentially a total consensus. It basically means almost everyone on your payroll, the folks watching you lead and call the shots every single day, those living with the fallout of your particular brand of management, have concluded you simply shouldn't be running the show. This isn't some political play or a beef over one bad call. It's a complete and total breakdown of leadership at its core. Beyond that vote of no confidence, people are fleeing. A staff that once totaled 1,686 has plummeted to around 1,158. We are talking about losing over 500 people, which is basically watching a third of your workforce walk out the door. Sergeant Aaron Cross went on the Duty Ron podcast in late February, claiming morale has hit rock bottom with deputies quitting in massive waves since Nanos got reelected in November 2024. When seasoned law enforcement veterans start jumping ship in droves, they take decades of institutional wisdom right along with them. You lose all those years of specialized training, community connections, and expert skills that are nearly impossible to substitute. Former SWAT commander Bob Kreider pointed out that the lead homicide detective at the Puma County Sheriff's Department currently has a mere 3 years under their belt. This isn't a knock on that investigator's personal skills or talent. It's just that every single veteran walked away. Having only 3 years of experience makes you the most senior person in the entire unit. Imagine the fallout for those intricate cases or major investigations where deep-rooted institutional knowledge is absolutely vital. Consider high-stakes moments where raw experience is everything. The Nancy Guthrie case is the exact type of mystery that requires your most seasoned pros. You need investigators who have handled dozens of these situations before and instinctively know where to look for clues. People who catch every minor red flag and know how to build a rock-solid case that will actually hold up in a courtroom. Instead, you're left with a homicide division where the most veteran investigator has only been on the job for 3 years. That fact doesn't reflect poorly on the officer, but it says everything about the mass exodus caused by current leadership. Cross mentioned to the New York Post that Nanos treated the Nancy Guthrie search like a vanity project, chasing headlines instead of chasing leads. Just 1 week into Nancy's disappearance, Sheriff Nanos had already called 3 separate press conferences for the media. He landed spots on NBC Nightly News and The Today Show, giving exclusive interviews to just about every major national outlet. But then the public briefings dried up. The very last full-scale press conference took place back on February 5th. After that, it was just occasional statements and rare interviews, losing all transparency. Some say the media blitz was more about Nanos than Nancy. There is also a specific comment Nanos made during a February 3rd briefing that arguably pulled back the curtain on his mindset. While being grilled about all the intense pressure from the press and having his every word dissected by critics who wanted him to own his statements, Nanos admitted, "I am just not accustomed to people dissecting my every word and then trying to hold me to them." Think about that. This is the top elected lawman in Puma County, Arizona, responsible for the safety of over 1 million people. The person at the helm of the most high-profile missing persons investigation in the entire country admitted on live television that he is not used to standing behind his own words. He did not say he welcomed the public oversight. He did not mention transparency or how vital trust is. No, he literally said he is not used to being held responsible. That single admission perfectly illustrates the fundamental problem rotting at the very heart of this entire situation. December 11th, 2025. Testifying under the strict penalty of perjury, the question was as follows. Ever been suspended? He said no. Yet El Paso records show 8 suspensions, 37 days docked pay, and a forced resignation. Only one of those claims is true. Either El Paso PD spent 40 years faking discipline records as part of some bizarre conspiracy just to hand them to reporters, or Sheriff Chris Nanos simply lied under oath during a federal court proceeding. Paperwork does not have memory lapses or get confused about the past. Official records serve as a permanent archive of the cold, hard truth. These files outlast every retirement, every new boss, and every administration. They exist specifically to preserve the fact. Human memory is notoriously unreliable, and people tend to get creative with the truth when the facts become inconvenient. But the reason this specific contradiction is such a bombshell is that it is not about some trivial detail from the distant past. We are not debating whether he clocked in at 7:58 or 8:02 on some random Tuesday morning in 1979. This is about whether he was ever suspended. We are talking about being sent home without pay 8 separate times, losing over a month of wages, facing a grand jury investigation, and being told to either resign or be terminated. These are the defining milestones of a career. They are the kind of traumatic professional experiences that nobody ever truly forgets. When you are suspended without a paycheck, the impact is instant. The bills keep piling up and the rent is still due. You are sitting at home without an income, forced to deal with the harsh financial reality of your own mistakes, facing a grand jury probe for supposedly booting someone in the face so violently they required urgent hospital care. That is hardly a minor event that simply slips your mind. Being forced to choose between quitting or getting the axe, sitting before superiors who declare your time at that agency is finished, having to decide to step down instead of facing the shame of being fired. That is a pivotal life event. Could anyone truly lose track of those details? Is it possible to honestly blank on 8 different suspensions while testifying under oath about whether you had ever faced such discipline? Our legal system does account for the chance of a genuine oversight. Yet the law also notes that certain events are far too massive to reasonably overlook, particularly when a person whose career relies on courtroom testimony and whose honesty anchors criminal trials, whose verbal statements carry the full authority of their badge, delivers sworn statements that flatly clash with the paper trail. It triggers massive concerns. Sheriff Nanos has yet to clarify this blatant discrepancy. His agency brushed off CV blunders as mere typos, yet ignored his sworn statement. He was told to stay silent. He treats any inquiry as a smear campaign. He remarked that answering for his words is new to him, but the files are undeniable. 7 weeks following that deposition, Nancy Guthrie vanished without a trace. Retired federal agents have described the choices made during this probe as absolutely catastrophic. Keeping heat-sensing aircraft grounded for hours, abandoning the crime scene prematurely, shipping vital clues to a private facility rather than to federal headquarters. The individual calling the shots is the exact same one whose court statements seem to defy the fact. County official Matt Hines claims this behavior makes him unfit for duty. Sergeant Aaron Cross believes the public needs to realize their top cop lied while sworn in. Roughly 500 locals are gathering names to trigger a new vote. Meanwhile, Nancy Guthrie remains gone. Her relatives are still searching. They are holding out hope. They are still promising $2 million for any tip to find her. They need some closure. They need a search run by a person whose honesty is beyond any doubt. They have a right to trust that the man finding their relative is being honest in court. Was Sheriff Chris Nanos actually lying while testifying? The paperwork tells one story. He tells another. Only one version can be real. Nancy's family needs to know the truth. The sheriff later admitted on record that his team left the crime scene too early and had to return days later for evidence they missed, by which time reporters had already photographed the blood. When the FBI asked to send physical evidence, including a glove found 2 miles away, to their Quantico lab for advanced DNA genealogy testing, Nanos refused and sent it to a private facility in Florida instead. Quantico testing costs local agencies nothing and can identify a suspect through distant relatives in hours. The Florida lab uses methods that consume the sample. Once tested, there is nothing left to re-examine. In 2024, 98% of Pima County deputies voted no confidence in Sheriff Nanos. Since his re-election, the department shrank from 1,686 staff to 1,158. The lead homicide detective on Nancy case has 3 years of experience. At a February press conference, Nanos said on live television, "I am just not accustomed to people dissecting my every word and then trying to hold me to them." He is the elected top law enforcement officer for over 1 million people. When the person running an investigation cannot be held to their own words under oath, every decision they make becomes a question mark, and the victim pays the price. A grounded aircraft, a compromised crime scene, evidence sent away from the best lab available. These are not abstract failures. Each one narrowed the window to bring Nancy Guthrie home alive. A recall effort launched in March 2026 has already drawn 500 volunteers. The County Board of Supervisors convened to review the sheriff conduct and what officials called potentially dishonest sworn testimony. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old, requires a pacemaker, and has been missing for 47 days. Her family has now raised the reward to $2 million. She is still out there. If you have any information about Nancy Guthrie whereabouts, contact the FBI directly at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit tips at tips.fbi.gov. A $2 million reward is unclaimed. Subscribe for every update on this case. Nancy Guthrie deserves an investigation run with integrity. Her family is still waiting. We are not stopping until she is found. 7 weeks before Nancy Guthrie vanished, the sheriff leading her investigation sat under oath and was asked a simple question. Were you ever suspended? He said no. Official records from the El Paso Police Department show 8 suspensions, 37 days of docked pay, 26 disciplinary marks, and a forced resignation in 1982. Among those incidents, a 15-day suspension after allegedly kicking a suspect in the head hard enough to send him to the hospital. A grand jury investigated. The department still punished him. His official county resume listed his El Paso end date as 1,984. Records confirm he resigned in August 1982. The office corrected the date after journalists broke the story, calling it a typo. On the night Nancy disappeared, Pima County owned a $7.5 million heat-sensing aircraft built for exactly this kind of desert search. It sat grounded for 3 hours. The only certified pilot had been reassigned to patrol duty after a personal dispute with Sheriff Nanos. A petty grudge kept the plane on the tarmac while Nancy was being driven away. In 3 hours, a vehicle can travel nearly 200 miles. That search radius covers an area the size of Connecticut. The thermal window to locate Nancy nearby closed while the hangar stayed shut